Good morning. It's nice to see everybody in person and virtually online. Welcome to the October 23rd Landmarks Commission meeting. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio Open Meeting Law and Section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinance of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings based on Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal from any case due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the beginning of the presentation. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, virtual attendees will use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile versions and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raised hand icon again and muting your microphone. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter must follow proper protocols to be considered. Proper channels for comments are sending an email to the landmark@clevelandohio.gov email address with a comment or letter, calling or leaving a message at 216-664-2532, or sending a letter or dropping off comments at City Hall located at 601 Lakeside Avenue, Suite 519. Communications with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by Landmark staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to any scheduled meeting. Mr. Musson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just go over the meeting rules and procedures. The chair will call each agenda item and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comment is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. Any received comments are distributed to the commission members prior to the meeting, and staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff. The commission will then begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
We'd like to call the October 23rd, 2025 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did just want to note before we go through the roll that I'm not sure if everyone's heard, but Alan Dreyer, one of our commission members, passed away this past Saturday. So he will not be with us today. Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Dulick? Councilmember Gray? Mr. Lozier?
Here.
Director Mersman?
Here.
Mr. Sambury?
Here.
Mr. Strickland?
Here.
Mr. Trosick?
Here.
Dr. Williams? And Ms. Trott?
Here.
Madam Chair, we do have quorum. I'd also like to note that we have Jessica Beam and myself present from the Landmarks office, and Carl Brunges from Landmarks is joining us online. And then we have Sierra Lipscomb from the Law Department representing us.
Excellent. Thank you. We will then begin with our certificates of appropriateness. We'd like to call our first applicant forward to announce themselves and tell us about your project. The first applicant is Shore House Lofts and Plus Detail, located at 425 West Lakeside Avenue. New signage.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is James Vasey with Signature Sign Company, seeking the board's approval for variance for signage. for the Shore House Lofts apartments. You can click to the next page, please. So this is showing the existing condition of the building. If we go forward to the next page, you'll see part of the proposal for the letters on the building. These letters are cut out of 1/8" aluminum and studded on the back. And what was discussed in the earlier meeting, that they will be, the mounting holes will be drilled in the mortar joints, so as not to damage any of the original brick on the building. And the second sign on the building is above the entrance to the apartments. Click again, forward again, please. This is actually showing a more detailed drawing of the letters on the building. The next page should be the awning. So this is a Sunbrella material awning with heat transfer digital prints on it. Was brought up at the local meeting was they weren't sure that there were downlighting, but yes, there is in fact downlighting. There had been downlighting on the entrance before. The awning itself is non-illuminated. And then if you look on the right-hand side, there's a sign on the front of the building for Plus Detail. This entrance here, that's the only business that enters through that door. All that main door, all of the other traffic will be for the residents that live in the apartments upstairs. The other businesses that are located on the first floor enter at another entrance, I think on 6th Street. There was a question that came up about the detail sign. It looks like it's encroaching on the sandstone, but it's in fact not. It's just the way that the artist or the designer put it in there. It will not be encroaching on that sandstone. It will be in between the sandstone pillars there. And here again, the same mounting will proceed with through the mortar joints and will not interfere or damage any of the original brick of the building. And I think because I think it's a residency, I think we're looking for a variance. I think Dan said it was 403 square feet. That's actually for the letters on the building. So that's what we're here for today. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them as best I can.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Before we get to our questions and comments, we'll start with Local Design Review Committee feedback.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Greater Downtown Historic Design Review Advisory Committee. They originally came on October 1st, and at that time only had the signage for the Shore House Lofts on the building face and the canopy. And there was a lot of questions from that meeting with the question on lighting for the entrance, spotlighting on the awning deck, and then questions about the occupancy or use of the building, who's using that entrance, is there commercial units in the building since the signage on the wall would just be for the residential units, and if there's a signage plan for the building, and kind of questions on that. And so through that process, the project returned back on October 15th for review, and they included the Plus Detail signage. And so that's why this project actually has two case numbers. So one for the Shore House Loft signage and one for the Plus Detail signage. And at that time, the committee discussed insulation through mortar joints and kind of the how it's installed and how it works with the residents there and also the commercial tenants. And so the committee on the October 15th meeting did make a recommendation for the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness with the notation that fasteners be installed through the mortar joints and that the secondary sign, the plus detail sign, be located on the brick and not touching the sandstone, as our applicant mentioned, and then support for any of the signage variances needed.
Okay, thank you. And landmark staff recommendation?
Good. Thank you, Madam Chair. As Ms. Beam noted, this, since there are two signs here for essentially two separate businesses, we have broken this into two cases. Case 25-081 is for the storehouse lofts, and then the case 25-082 is for the plus detail signage. The plus detail signage is allowed by code. It doesn't appear to need any variances. Staff has no issues with it. We would just like to confirm, as was noted in local, that the fasteners will be attached to the building within mortar joints, and that the width of the sign does not infringe upon any of the sandstone details. So I think a measured drawing that shows the width of the sign and the vertical sandstone elements would satisfy that. Regarding the storehouse loft signage, there is a variance, as Mr. Vacy noted, needs a 404.3 square foot variance for the wall sign. The canopy over the door is allowed by code, so there are no zoning issues with that. I guess this is one of those types of signs you see historically on, old warehouse type buildings. We appreciate the reversibility. If this is installed through the mortar joints, it would be easily removed since it's not painted on or anything like that. I think staff would just like to see a little more detail, like the distance from the sills and the lintels for each one, just, to allow it some room to breathe. And then understanding that the width of each letter is going to be a little bit different, but that be studied and we get some details on that. So I think, we'd like to see, if you do approve, we'd like to see final details reviewed by staff, and would ask the commission to provide some input on the distance and the height, the amount of breathing room they want to see between the lintel, the sill, and the actual letters. So.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Then we open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who would like to start us off? Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think given the mass of this building, that the size of the proposed lettered sign is appropriate. And I would support any variances required for that installation. And I think the awning sign is fine, and they've answered questions about the lighting provided at the entrance. And so I don't have any problem with this and would support the applicant in this submission.
Thank you, Ms. Strickland. Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you confirm the thickness of the aluminum material for the large sign?
It's 1/8 inch aluminum.
So the letters are roughly, 4 feet by 7.5 feet. I'm concerned a little bit about the thickness of the material, and to me, it might seem too thin to actually be able to sort of self-support itself. Was there any consideration for making that thicker?
I don't think that will be a concern as far as the thickness. 1/8 inch material is fairly thick material. Given the fact that the welded studs on there. I'm just trying to figure what is your concern? Are you?
Well, so it's not clear if it's stood off of the building by any dimension. It's right on the, it sort of has full northern exposure to the elements. So I know it's more robust for maybe smaller components, but for something that's roughly the size of a sheet of plywood, 4x8, it seems, I get concerned, if there's not of the thickness of it, holding up over time. Wind loads, snow loads, things like that, on the face. I don't think this will oil can, but you know, just a little bit of concern about the overall thickness of the material. So I guess my first, sort of a follow-up question then is this held off of the building by any dimension, or is it flat against the building?
I think originally it was going to be flush against the building, but then Dan brought up the issue of it projecting off, which Dan, we would have to talk about that. I don't know if it's something you want, like, you know, stick off a 1/4 inch or we'd have to probably talk about that and see what's appropriate. But as it is right now, we felt that the letters would be mounted flush to the brick itself.
Mr. Mussin, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't. I don't know that staff was projecting that it actually, or was suggesting that it project off the building. I think it was just a assurance that the any fasteners be installed through mortar joints as opposed to through the actual face brick.
Mr. Lozier, any other comments?
Nope.
All right, thank you. Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Strickland?
As a follow-up to Mr. Lozier's question, can the applicant provide specific experience that they've had with this type of sign, this size and this material? Do you have a history of installing a sign of this size and the performance over time?
Well, we have a lot of history as far as installing signs in the Cleveland area. If you've seen the Cleveland script signs and some of the wayfinding signs, you know, in downtown Cleveland, you see some the work that we do. East 4th Street is here another example of some of the signage that we do. If you've seen the new Asia Gate sign on 33rd in Payne, that was one of our designs there that we work with Jason Wong with. So we feel that.
I was asking specifically about this type of sign and its performance. And do you have specific details on the number of stud fasteners that will be utilized for each letter to provide necessary stability?
Yes, we're gonna have Bruce Farkas, the owner, here to shed some light on the questions.
So, we don't have a specific number of fasteners. I would expect that it would probably be 6. In terms of the material, this is 1/8 inch aluminum. It's not that big. It's gonna go flush to the wall. I have zero concern about this installation. Zero. Of any issues of any kind, oil canning or stability or wind load or any of those things. Initially, this was designed to look as though it were painted on the building because that's what would have been done in the period. The historical preservation advisor that the property retained preferred that we use aluminum rather than a digital print that is adhered to the brick that simulates paint. That's how we came here. And I think the effects will still be the same. But we have no concerns whatsoever about either the thickness of the material or the attachment method. And we'd be happy to submit it. More detailed drawings for the administration to review before we install. That's not a problem.
Yeah, that's going to be a stipulation, I think, as Dan mentioned, that details need to be provided for record to the staff.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. I think I will comment next, based on staff's requests. I think the size material, I feel fairly comfortable with based on the thickness and how it's going to be attached and the reversibility of it. For the size of it, I do feel that something similar to what is shown on the screen is appropriate, where I would say that would be a minimum of 8 inches. That the letters are kept from the brick piers and similar from both the sandstone sill and the brick head, so that it does leave breath for each letter. That would be the minimum, and that the final detailed drawings with dimensions to be reviewed and approved by staff. But overall, I'm in support of the proposal based on, with the stipulations we've already outlined in other comments. Other questions and comments from the commission? Would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Lozier?
I'll make a motion on the case 25082, the plus detail, to approve as presented.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland, for the second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Messam, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Samberry. Yes. Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
Ms. Strat.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Would someone like to make a motion for the case 25081? The main sign.
I will make a motion, Madam Chair, to approve this case as presented, with the requirement to supply staff with additional detail, both related to mounting and number of studs, et cetera, for the large signage, and to grant the square footage variance for the sign.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion with the, that's contingent on submitting measured drawings with details to staff for approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Samberry. Yes. Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Strat.
Yes.
I'm sure the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing your project move forward.
Great. Thank you very much, board.
Thank you. We'll then move on to our next applicant, located at 11401 Lorraine Avenue, Cleveland Christian Home Campus renovations.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so I appreciate everyone's time this morning. My name is Lucas Moore. I'm with CPL Architecture here in Cleveland. So the Cleveland Christian Home project is in a 1920s building, but it is a behavioral health system that is utilized in this building. So our main goal here is to achieve the appropriateness to move forward with a building permit that allows us to maintain the historical nature of the building while bringing it up to behavioral health standards of today, for the safety of its residents. On the screen here, you'll see a rendering of the front building. We have modified the windows for replacement so that they are better suited for handling behavioral health units. Existing units are gridded with integral blinds, but they are double hung windows. You'll see here that we have added just vented windows at the top. In situations where it's inappropriate for residents to have access to operate those windows, the simple hardware will be removed for the safety of those residents, but it will maintain a consistent look across the front of the building to try to maintain the historical value. If you could move forward to the next slide, please. So kind of going through the checklist here, the next two slides are looking at our zoning information. On the next slide, you'll see that we are in a historical district itself. Thank you. And then if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. some existing background on the two buildings that we have on this campus and the work that's being done. You'll see going around the building, there is a lot of trees, landscaping, but we also have to have our secure perimeter, not only to help the residents prevent eloping and leaving the campus, but some of the affiliations of the residents, they have had issues with outside influence coming into the campus, which would affect the treatment of the residents. So you'll see that we do show some fencing, for instance, in image 4 that we are looking to expand on and replicate, as you'll see in future slides. But the existing state of the building, image 5 there on the closest window, you can see windows that have been recently replaced from an approval from February of last year through Landmarks. So the rest of this facade is now on this approval. The front entrance that you see in image 6 of the main building, those columns are being replaced in kind. We have found a manufacturing company that can replace them almost exactly without needing to laser or 3D print anything. So the owner's been very happy with what they can provide there. And on the lower portion of the slides, you'll see 7, 8, and 9 are actually a separate building currently or previously was being used as a school, but now will act as a welcome center, having a new drop-off area. This building will be used for residents coming in 23 hours or less, so no sleeping overnight. But these are residents and children who are being brought here due to their parents maybe getting both arrested or they're being displaced, and currently they're being housed in whatever social office that they can be in. So they're now, with this moving forward, would be brought to this system, receive the care and attention that they need, and have a safe place to stay while some things are being figured out outside of their control. If you could move to the next slide. This is just to further reinforce that original look, the 1929 and the 1940 postcard that we have. You can still see that a lot of it has been maintained today. So our intent with this approval is to just rehabilitate the front, clean it up a little bit, and replace the windows to meet the needs of behavioral treatment that's going on inside. On the next two slides, we have some site information. So we are enlarging the site plan as it is today, mainly because of the advancement in the treatment course that we're trying to do. They need additional staff to give more one-on-one treatment to these residents. So we are expanding that staff parking lot. And on the left-hand side, you'll see an existing parking lot. This is visitor and staff as well. And you'll see later on that we have had some issues in that existing lot with the residents actually getting into that area and vandalizing. So you'll see a fencing proposal as we move on in some future slides as well. If you don't mind going to the next slide, please. As I did indicate, there's a lot of trees and landscaping on the existing site. On the northeast side of that plan, you'll see a couple trees are being pointed out. Those are currently in line with the new site parking lot. So, but I did want to discuss that those are actually trees that have mostly been considered dying or dead or falling apart. We are going through a staking exercise right now to actually outline the site and to see if we need to modify any of the drives to keep some of the larger oaks that are on the campus right now. But largely our intent is to only remove trees with current issues or smaller trees that are affecting the fence line and other neighbors. Now, I will point out on the second building here, due to the new drop off, there is a line of smaller trees along a current fence line that we would remove. And per our review last week, we are looking at adding just some ornamental trees to that drop off area to give it some of the greenery back. The next several slides are to address some of the checklist items. We wanted to provide everyone with the erosion control, our underwater treatment, or not treatment, but detention. And then If you wouldn't mind skipping ahead to 14 where we actually get into fencing, Jessica. You'll see those are just a lot of our underground and water treatment or water retention details. So on this slide, what you'll see is the red outline is the lower right fence, more of a decorative anti-climb fence. That again is to deter any vandalism to the staff cars that they're experiencing because of the recreational areas for those students being so near. They found that the existing anti-climb fence, which is on the, actually a photo of it is on the top right with the flu, is not sufficing to prevent them from getting to staff property. However, the rest of the blue line that you do see on the campus itself is to reflect the existing with that thinner or more condensed anti-climb fencing that you see at the top right of that to be full height on a 10-foot high perimeter fencing. Again, this is to try to not only prevent elopement, but outside influence from getting into the area while trying to maintain visibility through it without creating a hard edge to the whole campus. The next couple slides are our elevations. On the next slide, you'll see the windows that were existing is on the topmost elevation. You can see some of them are grayed out, but the remainder of those will be replaced in kind with that vented model. If you go to the next slide, there's more of a graphic to present that. So the windows shown in yellow are actually to be replaced with that vented model. I will note that the windows currently on the second floor on the left-hand side of this building were recently replaced, but they were replaced incorrectly with something that did not match the historical needs. So those are being removed and will be reinstalled with historical. And then on the next slide, you can see the actual windows themselves and the design of it. That is our intent and what is there today. And then the next several slides is for your reference as you're reviewing are just our floor plans. This is on a separate permit. Oh, I'm sorry, there are a couple more elevations of the second building as well. The second building is actually just being replaced in kind due to some poor conditions of the windows today. So those will be replaced. And this building was built in 1980s. So it is less historical, but it's still in the historical zone. If you could move forward, please. Keep going, please.
There's sometimes a delay.
It's okay. This is just kind of to help with the floor plans. This is our key plan to show you on the next several slides where we have floor plans to show for your reference of what is going on in the interior. We can go through these quickly. This is on a separate permit so that we were able to start some of the interior renovation work early as it did not affect the exterior of the building. And then the last two slides will reiterate the rendering that we saw on the first slide. We did update this after the meeting last week to show those windows more consistent with our design intent. And then the next slide will show you that second building's drop-off area to give it more of a welcoming site for kids who are currently going through some traumatic instances. So I appreciate everyone's time today. Is there any questions?
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Before we get to our questions, we're going to start with the local design
Oh,
review
thank you.
feedback and recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Historic West Cleveland Design Review Advisory Committee on October 15th. There was a lot of discussion about the site changes, parking changes, and wanting to see that any trees that are removed that are like the larger oaks are retained, and a lot of discussion on the windows, kind of wanting to, as our applicant mentioned, like the added additional detail for the windows, but they wanted to see that difference in the more details, I guess, there was a difference in the rendering versus the elevations that were done. There were suggestions for ornamental trees at that rear building to add additional landscaping because they're taking down trees and kind of making it more welcoming. And discussion on the 10-foot fencing, the visibility of the fence along Lorraine, and preference for a more decorative fence to be used along Lorraine, noting, understandable security issues and questions about that, but, having that Lorraine appearance, Lorraine elevation retain its similar appearance. Overall, they, or I guess at the end, they recommended the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness with conditions for renderings to be updated to show the window intent, the strong preference for a decorative fence option for the Lorraine facade, additional landscaping along Lorraine and at the rear drop-off area, a signage to return separately, and then a strong preference for any large oaks that are removed to be replaced with oak trees again.
Perfect. Thank you. And then landmark staff recommendation.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Landmark staff doesn't have any issues with any of the treatments proposed for the Welcome Center there at the rear of the property. I guess we do have some concerns about the proposed fencing, just that it being 10 feet high and going in front of the entire building. Curious if we could explore a way to potentially pull the fence back so that it kind of ended at the sides of the building and left that front parking lot unfenced. We understand that there are security needs between unwelcome visitors and AWOL residents, but it seems like it'll give it a heavy-handed appearance. And so if there's a way to mitigate that, we'd like to see that explored. Or at least, potentially the more decorative fence going along the front elevation as local proposed, because it being 10 feet high, I think it will be very evident from the street. Otherwise, we have a little bit more detail than they had at the local level as far as the windows go. So I think that's where some of the questions from the local committee came from. And you can see up on the screen now the 2024 windows that you guys approved, which is what's being proposed for as replacements on the on all the elevations, the front elevation mainly. Staff is supportive of these in the wings. I think we'd like to see a little more detail for that center section of the building, as it has a bit of it's got cottage sash windows on the first floor. The window treatments are just a bit different. We'd like to see how the proposed replacement lines up with the original windows, which are still intact.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's I think a summary of our comments and concerns.
Great, thank you. Then we will open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Would like to start us off? Ms. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm curious about the 10-foot high fence. Will that require a variance from zoning for a fence of that height?
At this distance from the street in the front of the lot, I don't know that it will. That's an interesting question. One would think since it's in the front of the property, it might. We haven't gotten feedback on that.
I think
but
it may
that's-
very well
Yeah,
require
that's
a
a good
variance.
point.
In front of the building.
Yes,
That's usually the lever, correct? If
yes,
it's-
yeah. If it's in the front lot or back, they're kind of treated differently. Yeah, that's something we can certainly look into.
Excellent.
The other question I had to do with is the grids on the windows. We quickly went through the existing elevations. And I think predominantly the windows are 6/6. Is that right? Double hung?
Yes.
You're proposing essentially 3/6?
Yes, in this instance, to try to maintain their, actually, I believe, if you wouldn't mind going back. It should be the 5th page.
My question is going to be similar to what Dan has suggested that, especially in that center section, trying to replicate, the grid pattern
Yeah.
that was there originally would be a strong preference.
Do a grid of 9 on the bottom and 3 at the vent. Good. Would it be appropriate to limit that to the center section as we have recently replaced windows that were approved last year
Right.
with the other grids?
Yeah, so I personally, it's not exactly the same, but the proposed grid pattern, I think, is close enough that it
Okay.
represents
Okay.
what it looked like historically. But that center section, I think, should be
Okay.
studied. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Sandberry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question is to Mr. Secretary. Can you jog my memory on the last application? Typically, we look at these projects holistically. Why didn't we look at the entire project at that point and only focus on a couple locations?
Through the chair, at that point, they were needed to replace several of the windows. I believe it was for security reasons, and they intent at that point was to come back to us with a more holistic plan, or an indication that not all the windows needed changed at that point. So I think, I don't know, there've been a lot of small projects going on at this property that we've been kind of trying to wrangle into one larger project to review. And I think this is the most holistic we've seen. And yeah, it would have been nice to been able to look at that with the 2024 windows and their approval, because yeah, that lens may have changed
Right.
some of how we approach this. But I do recall, there being a good amount of discussion about, sort of those windows originally being double hung, whether they'd been previously replaced or not. But the security concerns sort of outweighing those, like that vent at the top was not ideal. We wanted something that looked more like a traditional double hung sash, but programmatically they needed that level of security. So the commission, I would say, compromised, and that was the solution, which I still, since that's on a good portion of both of the wings now, is probably appropriate for the wings. I just think the center building probably needs more study. Whether it's, a totally different window or just the Muntin patterns to kind of get that feel of it being unique from the rest of the buildings, from the rest of the wings.
Thank you.
So
That's helpful.
If you don't mind me adding on to that, so the 2024 project was more the residential wings. So, and that area in the front building was also a residential portion of the building. So they only had the funding to handle the residential areas. Right now, they're bringing everything else up to speed within the building to help actually their course of treatment.
So what is behind or what is within the central main
The
building?
center building, on the level 1 is their main secure entrance. It'll be their control area, their wanding, and some of their intake space. So a bed bug treatment room, which is more internal. They'll have exposure to the control room on the front windows, their security office, and the main waiting area as families are coming in to visit.
So do they have the same security issues and concerns for this central building's windows as they do on the wings?
They will be, the waiting area can be accessed by residents coming to visit. So there is the anti-ligature concern there. So we would request that the venting could still occur there. Unless we just did fixed windows entirely in the location. On the second floor is more of their clinic medical space. So they're doing another intake room, any treatment exam rooms up on the second floor as well. A nurse's station and some nurses' offices, which students can, or not students, but the residents can come into as well for kind of one-on-one counseling. So we've taken extra measures that any room that those residents can get into, despite whether they're intended to be left alone or not in those rooms. We've weighted towards the side of you never know what could happen.
Okay. That's helpful, and I think it would be very helpful to, submit additional information on those windows. You get more information. But I do agree with Mr. Strickland on the height of the front fencing, and see if there's other solutions that may be more pleasing to the public on Lorraine.
Thank you, Mr. Sandberg. Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Talking about staying on the windows for a second. In that central building, I guess do those windows operate now, and does the building HVAC system, is the building HVAC system in such a way, such a type that requires outside ventilation?
The entire HVAC system of today is being just replaced entirely. Everything is outdated. I will say those windows today are painted shut from the inside and probably the outside. Many of them actually have a plexiglass to discourage vandalism as well. I will say there will be some outside air brought in, but not via the windows or those vents. So that's more of an environment, just resident pleasure, if you will.
Gotcha. I guess my follow-up to that is, if ventilation isn't required through the windows, should those just be fixed windows?
We can look into that and see, make sure there's no differential.
That might be something that I might recommend, especially in that central area, to be able to match as closely to the existing as original as possible. My follow-up question is about the fencing, but not on Lorraine. I think we've talked enough about that. On the eastern property line, that abuts to residential,
Yes.
and the intent is that's a 10-foot tall fence as
So
well.
there's actually an existing fence today that many of the residents are attached to today. So we are going to pull back 3 feet from that line to build a new fence that would be anti-climb. And we're proposing weed barrier and gravel so that they can maintain it without affecting any of the residences. Fencing.
So it's a little bit hard to tell too from the sort of aerial view, but there is a line of, looks like, old growth trees along that property line. I don't know if that's on this property or if those are on the residential properties.
Those will actually fall between much of the parking area and that fencing.
Okay.
A lot of that is small growth.
Okay.
So any odd trees that are sticking out are rather insignificant, I would say. Many of the major oaks that you'll see in an aerial or walking the site have been greatly impacted and are dying, or we are trying to avoid entirely.
Yeah, I noticed on the one site plan, the sort of the grouping of trees that are sort
Yeah.
of in the corner. But it does look like, and again, I don't know but just looking at from above, it looks like, there is a line that sort of aligns with that. And those aren't shown on that plan as you sort of continue south. My concern is, and I don't know if there's, fences along, individual fences along that rear property line of those properties or not. So I'm a little concerned about the impact to those particular residences that maybe not have a fence of their own, and what they're seeing beyond. Right now, it's sort of grass area. Now they're going to be looking at a parking lot and a tall 10-foot fence. So is there and maybe I might recommend a consideration for additional plantings as a buffer between the properties and the parking, whether it be, on the outside of the fence or between the fence and the parking.
Understood.
But other than that, I'm glad that things are continuing to sort of progress at this location. Seems like there's funding in place for all of this work and helping with sort of the, people with these behavioral issues. So glad to see that it's coming back
Yes.
and more work is happening at the,
It's become a significant need in the area, so we're happy to have it moving forward.
awesome. Those are all my comments.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Lozier. Other questions and comments? Director Merschman?
Thank you. First, I want to thank you guys for investing in this building, especially with the details of the operations that you're doing. There's obviously a lot of needs and constraints associated with needs for your operations,
Yeah,
potential constraints associated with an old building. So I appreciate that you guys are applying a lot of thoughtfulness to the details here and in making it meet your needs while also really respecting the historic nature and identity of the building. As it relates to the windows, I think there is some value in redundancy to HVAC and being able to ventilate if the system goes down for whatever reason. So I think that's important to weigh in addition. And I think that also speaks to that balance of operations and
Yeah.
historic nature. I am interested in talking more about the site and specifically your additional parking and some of the access drives there. It looks like you have an existing one-way drive off of Lorraine to your existing parking in front of the building, but that this is proposing shifting that a little bit east and potentially widening it. Is that right?
that is correct.
Okay. As you know, in your presentation, you are in a pedestrian retail overlay. And so with that zoning designation, we try to keep the sidewalk as continuous as possible, limiting driveways. It seems like the shift to the west may put you where a bus stop is currently existing. So there will be some coordination with RTA in relocating that.
Okay.
And although I would defer to the official zoning review, that driveway relocation will likely kick you to planning commission for a conditional use. So I do wonder if you could consider just entry to that new eastern parking lot off of Fidelity. I mean, you have several other accesses there. So as much as you can minimize or even remove the drive onto Lorraine, that adheres much more closely with the goals of the pedestrian retail overlay and would keep you out of additional process to get that approved. So I know that you mentioned you're looking at trees and sort of thinking about the configuration of that. So those are just a couple of additional items to keep in mind as you're finalizing that portion of the site.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Director. Any additional questions and comments? Overall, I think the majority of the commission members have said my comments. That was one about the drive. Overall, I think it's nice to see this project continue to move forward, and the development. We continue to want, if there are future things that are also on the books, to continue to bring that to staff earlier than later. As the master plan for the property, we understand that projects have to go in phases, especially something like this. But as you make these adjustments, if there are other things that are considered, I encourage you to bring them forward so that we can take them into account now, so that it makes reviews in the future easier.
Will do.
But overall, I'm in support of the project based on some of the conditions that other commission members have outlined.
Thank you.
Hearing fairly consistent comments in support of the project, would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Strickland?
Madam Chair, I think that the nature and extent of the comments are such that I don't feel comfortable voting on this project at this time. And my preference would be to ask the applicant if they would agree to table the project, to come back with additional information regarding the fencing, site access, window configuration. Try to do that as quickly as possible so that we have more information to consider
Okay.
before we vote on the project.
Okay, so we have a recommendation to table. Is there any other feedback from the commission? Either in support of the tabling or in support of an alternate motion?
I'll just note that seems to me consistent with the schematic review, and I'm not sure that we did review this schematically. There is site work here. It's not maybe as significant as new construction that we typically do, but if the applicant is willing to do that, I think it would be very helpful to have the full picture.
Understood.
So with tabling, it would allow you the time to respond to us, and then you could come back as soon as 2 weeks if there is space on the agenda.
Okay.
So we have your permission to table?
Yes.
All right, so with the owner's permission, then would someone like to make a motion?
Move to table the project.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Then Mr. Muslim, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trassick. It's
Oh, there you go.
Mr. Trassick.
Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously. Yeah, staff will work with the applicant to get them on an upcoming agenda. And just a quick note, I think our next meeting is actually 3 weeks away because of an extra Thursday in October.
There you go. Okay. Well, excellent. So then we look forward to seeing you back
Yes.
to continue the conversation on the project.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
That concludes our certificates of appropriateness. We'll now move on to our schematic plan reviews. Our first applicant is located at 1560 Mistletoe Drive, the Music Settlement renovation and addition.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm
Good
Peter
morning.
Bohan with Prospectus Architecture. We're the architect of record for the project.
And John Williams with Process Creative Studios. We are the design architects, but it's more collaborative than that.
Okay.
There's a slight delay, so.
Yeah, we've been through this a couple times. I'll try not to panic. Okay, so we're presenting a small addition to the Grease House on the Music Settlement campus. Next slide, please. The project site is at the corner of Wade Park Avenue and Mistletoe Drive as part of the current Music Settlement campus on University Circle. Next slide, please. This is an aerial illustrating the entire Music Settlement campus. You can see it's at the corner of Wade Park and Mistletoe. And our project site is at the north corner of that property at Mistletoe and Wade Park. Next slide, please. This is the existing site plan. In orange, you can see the existing historic Grease House. Then in the blue outlined in red, to the left is an existing one-story structure that is currently their percussion garage and a storage area. And then the blue attached to the orange rectangle is a later addition to the Grease House that is being proposed to be removed as part of this project. Next slide, please. These are some photographs of adjacent properties. The top two photographs are of the homes across the street from the proposed project. In the lower left corner is a photograph of the house that is immediately adjacent to the property. And then behind the trees there, you can see the existing Grease House on the left. On the lower right is a photograph of some of the buildings just south of the Music Settlement campus along Magnolia and Mistletoe there. And those are all part of Case Western Reserve's campus. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view from the south looking north, sort of center right there. You see the existing Grease House, and then in the orange rectangles are the two structures that I mentioned earlier, the percussion garage that is directly adjacent to the west property line, and then that small later addition that we're proposing to be removed as part of the project. Also visible in this slide to the north, there is an existing playground that is utilized by the early childhood program that is part of the Music Settlement. That has being retained, though in a smaller configuration. And then directly at the corner, you sort of see those pathways and green areas. That is the outdoor classroom. That is being retained as part of the project. So we're not proposing any changes directly at the corner of the site. And then south of the building, you see the existing parking lot. Most of that is being retained. We are losing a couple spaces in there, but for the most part, that is remaining unchanged. Next slide, please. This then illustrates the proposed footprint of the addition. So you can see it is sort of sitting directly where that percussion garage is, extending a little bit to the north and south, and then joining the grease house in that area where that older or more recent addition is being removed. Next slide, please. The existing grease house, for the most part, is being retained. We are looking at cleaning and repointing. There is a lot of restoration to this house that is going to occur. The roof is being replaced. Brick is being cleaned and repointed. We are looking at restoration and potentially replacement of some of the windows for a more energy efficient appearance. Performance. And that's probably about everything on this slide. Next slide, please. These are some photos and just a little more detail on that rear porch addition. It looks like it was built in at least 3 or 4 different sections. Just some very strange additions to provide some storage, an odd little bathroom, and then the fire escape is also being removed as part of the project. So we're looking at removing and cleaning up this portion of the house. Next slide, please. Okay. So now we're looking at the proposed site plan and first floor plan. Sort of center right and outlined in that faint red dashed line is the footprint of the existing grease house. To the left is the simple rectangle of the addition that we're proposing. So really what we're looking at with this addition is just a simple and elegant rectangle to be deferential to that existing historic home. Sort of sits behind it to the west, so the existing home retains its presence on the corner. Really looking to establish a welcoming and accessible new entry to the school program here, as well as providing new classrooms. So the large rooms within the existing house will be used for some of their quieter instrumental instruction, pianos, harps, electric keyboards. Then the addition on the left will be providing, it's a 2-story addition with 3 larger classrooms on each level for their big and loud programs. They've got rock, pop, jazz groups that they provide instruction for. This will also provide an accessible entry to the program, restrooms to support the new classrooms, as well as accessibility to the house. Right now, the house itself is not accessible. There's no elevator. It's up about 30 inches from grade. So we are introducing an elevator to provide access to all levels. So on this first floor, again, you can see the addition to the left with the 3 larger classrooms, then the 3 classrooms within the existing house. Just to the north of the house, we are looking at that northern classroom on this level being open to the right, to an area we're referencing as the music patio. So there is a large door there that would allow that indoor space to be used as a stage for performances to that area. Then to the north, that large rectangular space is the proposed playground for the early childhood center. And then you can see that outdoor classroom remaining on the corner of the site. So center bottom, then you can see the vestibule and entry from the parking lot. So that main drop off will be from the parking lot at grade level there for an accessible entry. Next slide, please. Second floor plan, very similar to the first. The floor plan of the house is very similar from level to level. So another 3 classrooms, again, for your quieter instruments, cellos, pianos, the harps are at this level. And then on the left side, the addition with the 3 large classrooms, again, primarily percussion, jazz, rock and pop. But we also have, then you can see on the lower right-hand corner of the addition, a lounge space for parents, staff, et cetera. That sort of serves as a very glassy space above the entry. Next slide, please. This is the 3rd floor, so the addition is only 2 stories, trying to maintain the scale of the house. The attic space is potentially going to be renovated for some additional instruction space, and the elevator is going to that level. Next slide, please. The basement is being maintained, but primarily for storage, mechanical, electrical, and support for the building. So there's no instruction being performed on the lower level. Next slide, please. Then we had 2 third floor plans. Next slide, please. Maybe we're going backwards. There we go. Okay. This is a sort of panoramic view from that existing parking lot, where you can see on the left is the Burke Mansion, in the center is the early childhood building, and then on the far right is the Grease House. What we're illustrating with this, the Grease House is sort of an outlier on this campus. It's a very different structure with the red brick, sort of stands apart. And there you can see there's a pretty big gap between that early childhood center and the Grease House. So really looking at placing this addition to provide some continuity to the campus, as well as a very nice and recognizable entrance to the Grease House. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is the first illustration of the outside of the building. You can see the rectangular addition on the left, the existing Grease House on the right. Sort of center of the image then is this glassy entry right at grade, so easy to drop off, bring the instruments and the kids in, with that glassy lounge above that to provide a nice, bright and recognizable entrance to the building. We are looking at picking up on subtly some of the horizontal banding from the Grease House through the brick and some of the horizontal elements of the addition. The rendering may not illustrate the different finishes. You know, every screen has sort of a different look to it. We do have some additional photos, but I did bring our proposed brick is a darker brick. And the Grease House itself, to bring an actual brick from that, is actually a little bit darker than it appears in the photos here. So hopefully you can see that. So the contrast isn't as jarring as it may appear in these illustrations, but it is intended to be distinctly different while picking up on some of the darker brick that we do see in the other parts of the campus. So again, trying to create some continuity between the 2 projects while still being deferential to the Grease House. Next slide, please. This is a view from that northeast corner looking back towards the Grease House, the addition, and then you can see illustrated here that music patio, the potential for opening that classroom up as a performance space, and then the playground to the right is there as well. Let's see, next slide, please. We do have some elevations illustrating each side of the building. You can start to see some of the alignments of the windows and the horizontal banding, which is the intent to provide some continuity. I think our next slides are of the proposed brick in some different locations on the campus. So next slide, please. Yeah. So you can see here, left to right. On the left, we've got the sample brick positioned at the Burke Mansion. You can see there's a lot of darker bricks there, trying to pick up on both the texture and the color. The center photo is of the brick samples placed at one of the historic components of the Early Childhood Center. And then again, on the right, you can see the brick up against some of the areas of the Grease House. So again, the darker brick and the darker red of the Grease House are a lot closer than they may appear in some of the images. I may pause here, John. I don't know if you want to chime in about some of the illustrations here. This may be a good part of the presentation for you to make some notes.
Sure, you've done a good explanation and setting the table, but while we have the slide up, again, you guys have experienced this a lot. No matter how you render something, no matter how you even take these photos, when we looked at these photos on our sheets or in person, the image on the left, which is this brick next to the Burke Mansion, they look almost identical. And here you see contrast. And the Grease House itself, you can't really see. It's red, but it's a darker red. And there is a mix of 3 or 4 different style or colors of the brick. So, you know, we want to be, our intention from day one was to be respectful to the Grease Mansion. We want to treat the historic nature and the fabric as nicely as we can. And with the addition, you know, it was set back. When you look at the front facade of Grease, you see the addition behind, and it's kind of trying to be quiet, deferential, which is one of the reasons why we selected the brick we did. We selected the brick on site with 20 people, staff members, and this is what there was a universal decision made for. The only other thing I want to talk about is normally when we're working on a new building next to an old building, we push the new building back. Obviously it is from the street because that's where we are, but the initial studies had the new addition and that primary entrance back from the Grease House. And then we were standing on the far corner of the parking lot one day looking at that and realizing, wait a minute, one of the issues that the Music Settlement has, it's large. There's 5 buildings, 6 buildings, and there's not much continuity. And we realized if we build this, but bring that entranceway forward, we close off that campus. So when you're standing there, from the parking lot, it looks more cohesive. And it also brings the entrance where people are going to be walking in now, so they don't try to go up the steps to get to the front entrance. So we did bring that forward with pragmatic intention.
Thank you. Next slide, please. We're getting close to the end here. This is just an assembly of some of the different materials. So we've got the existing brick shown, the proposed brick, so you can see why we brought the samples. Each time you photograph this, it looks a little bit different. We are looking at the trim for the house to be carrying through sort of that cream color from some of the other structures on the campus. And then we're still tweaking the storefront finish, but something in sort of a gray finish is what we're looking for the windows and the storefront areas on the addition. And that may be it, or is there another slide? No, that was it. Okay,
All right, thank you for the presentation.
thank you.
Before we get to our comments, we'll go to Design Review Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Greater Northeast Historic Design Review Advisory Committee schematically on the 7th. And there was a lot of good discussion at that meeting. Some of the committee members were noting the large size of the addition compared to the existing home, the location of it set back on the property. They were generally in support of the massing of the building and kind of the configuration of it, but there's a lot of discussion. You may have picked up on the color of the brick, the color of the addition, and with the very, I think eventually they got to a point where they agreed that not matching the existing red would be preferred overall, majority of the committee members, but wanting to see possibly different contrast or something warmer or kind of work in the existing color tones or a stone color perhaps. So just a lot of discussion about that due to the contrast of the new addition to the neoclassical home. As with any addition that we get to historic buildings, there's always the question of modern versus historic and kind of how the old and new interact. And so some of the comments from committee members were that transition of the old and new is important, possibly softening that entry and giving it a little bit, not kind of hitting the main home, but softening it a little bit from the kind of stark change that it has. And kind of that discussion of that we get in this neighborhood where a lot of the buildings are historically their residences and now they're institutional uses, and kind of how you bridge that gap of putting an institutional addition on a home that was built to be residential, but is, you know, institutional use now, and kind of working with the change of the original use of the building. Overall, they were understood the needs for this addition. We're supportive of kind of this addition and investment in the neighborhood and the building. And so we'll look forward to hearing more discussion about it as it moves forward.
All right, excellent. And then staff recommendation or feedback?
Thank you, Madam
Am I-
Chair.
Am I allowed to make a couple comments on that, or should I wait?
Let's wait 1 second and then you can respond.
Yes, staff met with the design team back in July 2024 to kind of look at this very, I guess, very conceptually. And yeah, we think it's developed nicely. You know, I think there are some kind of questions we would ask, like, have you explored this? Have you explored that? I assume over the past, you know, year plus, you guys have done most of that. But I guess the two things that, you know, I guess largely we agree with the local committee's comments. I think that was a good discussion. And then there is that sort of dominant stringer course on the mansion that we wonder if that could continue through a little more consistently. I see some references to it, but I think that connection could be a little stronger. And then just the, you know, understanding how difficult it is to find the right blend and color of brick in projects like this, especially when you have a campus and multiple buildings. Did you guys look at sort of embracing some of the stucco on the site and the other buildings and kind of, you know, take it in a different direction than a masonry blend? More just a curiosity than, you know, or something to think about, but that's pretty much all we have.
All right, thank you. Then we'll open, before we open up the floor, if you'd like to respond to the local comments.
Just a couple things. There was a lot of discussion about the brick color, but that presentation did only have the illustrations we had. So that's why for this presentation, we added the photos of the brick in context with some of the other buildings, some of the campus context photos, and brought the samples with us. So those were not available to the last review group. So I just wanted that to be clear. And it was definitely one of the most diverse feedbacks that we've received. We did receive, and I mean that in the most professional way. There were several members that were strongly in favor of what was proposed, and there were other members that had some comments that were not in agreement. So it was an interesting review. Those are my comments.
I would also just point out that it was a good conversation, and the disagreements even amongst those board members was about the color of the brick, not the basic design. And there was strong advocacy for, well, why are you not matching the brick? And we discussed that oftentimes when you try to match the brick, you're not successful. It looks slightly off and looks like a mistake. So our intention was not to try to match the brick of the Greaves building, but to go in a compatible but contrasting approach.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Then we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. We'd like to start us off. Pleasure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with all of the comments that have been discussed beforehand. I think this is a unique instance where I think there's a lot of different opportunities here, and it's really sort of getting to what is the best, you know, ultimately the best outcome. I have no problem with the massing. I have no problem with the materiality. I think that, you know, the addition is certainly deferential and recedes to the sort of the prominence of the main house. I don't have any issue with the dark brick color. But you mentioned looking at sort of things campus wide, and maybe if we go to the sort of the campus image. And I certainly think, you know, the darker brick does fit in, and I think it is really helpful to see kind of the photos with the brick in place. But when you look at the other buildings on campus, there's a, you know, a strong sort of brick, dark, you know, deep, rich color, and then you have something that's light. In what's being proposed, it keeps it sort of within that darker side of things. I think that they're, again, looking at it from this campus perspective, you know, what to me, what's missing is another sort of bright element in sort of that sort of mass and scale that helps to sort of create something a little bit more with continuity. And so I 100% agree that I don't think the right color for the addition is to match the existing brick. I think it needs to be different. But I would be interested in seeing what either a buff brick, something similar coloration to the trim on the house, as well as the sort of the stucco color. Also intrigued by if this goes to maybe something that's not a brick, what does that start to do, and how does that start to fit in with the rest of the campus? I like the idea of brick. I think it's sort of this monolithic thing that I think is really sort of handsome in this context. So that's sort of generally my comment there. Like, I think you're picking up on some of the comments that Mr. Musson had made about the strong sort of horizontal line of the existing house and how that aligns with the addition. I appreciate sort of the level of detail with the addition as well, where it's not just a big block. You are breaking down that massing with different different design of courses and things like that. So in general, I think I'm in support of kind of what's being presented. I do have a question about the main house. You mentioned that there will be some level of renovation restoration. Is the intent that happens in tandem with the addition? So when this comes back, we'll see sort of all of that in addition to the addition, I would assume. Right?
Correct. This is one whole project, so it would be completed in the single phase.
And again, thinking about how best to restore this in the right ways. And I know that you're extremely competent and appreciative and do sort of understand sort of the ins and outs of that. So I have confidence that will be done in a respectful manner. The site. We didn't. I mean, there wasn't a lot of development as part of this. No, this is really just looking at the addition. I guess looking at the sort of the on this I guess the northeast corner. There are also some trees that live within that landscape. I'm assuming it looks like those are probably maintained as part of this overall.
Absolutely.
So I think that's also helpful to the presentation and the renderings is, there's probably a level of, what does this look like from the street with all of that vegetation still in place, but also getting other views that show kind of what it looks like when you're closer to the building. Because I think that helps just us and, the public kind of see it in actual context. But again, the level of renderings are really helpful to understand kind of all of that. And so, those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Sandberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a lot of mixed feelings on this. I don't personally agree with the massing. I think it is too large. I don't personally agree with the color. And I understand that you're locked in on the needs of the new addition, on the size, the scale, and how to fit all of that program into a new space. But given the site, you're on a corner, you actually face two different streets. And the current connection between all of these buildings on your campus is this entity that owns all these buildings. But historically, those buildings were not connected in any other way than any of the other buildings across the street or next door. I think you've almost turned your back to the residential looking neighborhood. Not that they're all residents today. I understand that they are mostly owned by other organizations. But the addition on, as viewed from Wade Park Avenue, I don't think it's deferential to the other buildings on that street. And that's really the street where you see it the most. It is tucked away on Mistletoe Drive, and it's probably not very visible from Magnolia, but it is going to be front and center on Wade Park Avenue. And so I think it would be helpful to see, an elevation of that street and how it relates to the buildings next to it, in scale, in relation to that whole side of the neighborhood. It kind of feels like in this presentation, it's just had its back turned to those buildings. And I guess I would like to see it speak to that neighborhood a little bit further. So I do agree with, following the banding of the existing building. I would probably not pull colors from the other buildings. I would treat this as its own building. So if you're going to pull colors from other buildings that were historically not related, I would pull them also from other buildings within the neighborhood and not just this campus. So I guess treating this building as its own building, separate from the rest of the campus, separate from the rest of the neighborhood, there's parts I like and parts I dislike about the colors. I think this building historically, this building does not have a lot of variation in the brick. From the photos you show, it's a pretty consistent colored brick. So I like that the sample you have is pretty consistent and not a lot of variation in the batch. But I don't like this is more of a modern color. And we see this a lot in new construction within historic districts. But I think a warmer gray or warmer reddish would fit better in this neighborhood overall. And then I know you guys are familiar with, like the preservation briefs, and 14 is the one that focuses on additions. I think they emphasize a lot of, keeping it separate but connected. I don't know if you've investigated a hyphen in any way connecting these two buildings. That may be helpful. I also noticed you're not utilizing the basement, right? Your foundation is just slab on grade. Could you sink this down in the first floor as part of the basement, and then your overall mass is half the size? I don't know what that does to your program, but visually that may diminish the size of the addition.
I think the challenge with that one, excuse me, was accessibility. We're trying to bring people in at the grade level, so to have to go down to a level, I think would add some.
But you do have an elevator, right?
We do, yeah. Just the amount of space it would take for those transitions might be challenging. So I think that probably is part of why we based it right at
These are
grade
just
level.
suggestions. I'm not
Sure. No, I appreciate it.
There's no pushback here. Everything that you've brought up are things, we've been working on this for close to 4 years now. And we looked at a variety of different options. I do want to point out, and we have photographs that will help show this. that elevation that you were talking about from where it's mostly residential, Magnolia, Wade Park, sorry. That is smallest width-wise, but when you stand on Wade Park and look back, there are trees, and you really, again, it sounds like I'm being defensive, I'm not, but you really don't see that much. And our intent was to try to keep that as minimal as possible. We only have one, we might be adding another window, and then there's a small sign we'll talk about when we come back for signage. But you can barely see, if you look up, you can see it on the far right of that elevation. And that was just our way of saying, hey, here's the end of the campus. So this was kind of a neutral statement. And, you know, we are still struggling with alignments. I mean, there's a little obsessive compulsive to try to get things to work. And the Grease building itself, when you start to look at all the little, nothing aligns on the Grease building. So when we start to look at consistency around all four elevations, it's just not there. So we're still tweaking all of that, and you'll see that in next presentations. So.
Yeah, and I think I know you're probably thinking about those things. It's not shown in it's not represented in the presentation. I think it would be helpful to see the buildings,
Agreed.
you know, in the rear. But to that point, I guess I do think it would be beneficial to have the windows be similar size. And if you can go to just the elevation drawings. Right. Assuming the existing building is fairly accurate, it does look like there's a pretty consistent data line that you could follow to keep at least the heights and locations of the windows. That may help tie it together a little more.
Again, not disagreeing, but you know, these are the brick patterns tied to the horizontal more strongly. So yes, we didn't always align the heads of the windows, but there's more detail there that ties things together. I'll also note, again, this is schematic, we're still studying this. The front entrance and the side entrance where the music patio will be, we wanted to have glass meeting the Grease so that there was that hyphen there. And what we're studying now, even with the front entrance and that side entrance, is trying to make that glass component stronger. So you might not see the next time we come in the brick going over the top of it like you see it now. So that it does become a little bit lighter as it touches the historic building.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanberry. Other questions and comments? Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I understand and appreciate all of the time and effort that's gone into specifically selecting the colors. I personally don't have a problem with the massing and how the addition relates to the existing structure. But my first reaction was, you know, maybe a buff colored, stone colored addition would be more appropriate and still accomplish trying to represent, you know, the existing structure primarily and minimize the impact of the addition. But you know, you've worked with the owner, and with a 20-person committee came up with this color. So my initial reaction would be maybe a buff color, but I'm sure you studied that as well. So I think I could support this. In the existing building, looking at this south elevation, are the if we go back to that picture of the parking lot, are the windows being altered at all in the existing structure, or is that that all being maintained?
We're looking at maintaining all of the windows, potentially replacing. We're looking at both restoration and replacement options right now. But the only thing that's changing, there is one odd door on that elevation that is going away. There are two doors there. One of them goes into sort of an odd little platform area. So we are removing that door. But the
Part of
windows
the
remain.
original house or part of the addition?
That one was, yeah.
Our gut feeling is no, it wasn't part of the addition, but it's strange. Because, well, we could get into black holes on this. It looks like it has a little roof over it and the door that was added later, but it was added to what is the primary stairs between the first and second floor. And the nicer entrance is to the secondary servant stair, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I think that at some point they said, oh, we really need to be able to come in this way to our main stairwell.
But to answer your question, all the existing windows are remaining in their current positions.
Yeah, from these two, from this picture versus the elevation. It looks, there's something white next to the tree there. What am I looking at there?
That's a sign.
It's a vinyl banner that used to have their logo on it that is completely washed off.
faded.
Yeah, so it's just a vinyl banner attached to the building.
All right, that's what was confusing me. So I think it's important that we understand what modifications you're making to the existing structure. So you've fully explained, the addition that you're proposing to take down. But if you're modifying any of the other existing elements, we need to understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Strickland. Director Merschman?
Thank you. I just have a question about the existing playground and sort of the site plan outside of the building. I know in what you shared today, it didn't really get into detail of that, but it does look like the new addition goes a little bit into what is now the playground. Is that also part of this project? Is that something that will be designed and constructed separately? Could you just shed a little bit of light on that portion?
Technically, it's being designed and constructed separately, but they're being done in conjunction and coordinated with one another. It's more an accounting and funding thing than it is sort of a project execution thing.
Do you think when you come back for the final certificate of appropriateness, it would be reasonable to include those details in your presentation? It could be for information only. I think it's really neat how there's the outside classroom. Your new addition will be leading into that, and it would be helpful to see how it all connects.
We will do our best to do that. That's not within our control, but
Okay.
we'll see what we can do.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Director. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm largely in alignment with Mr. Sandberry's comments. I feel that the addition is little large for the site. And I totally agree that the brick should not mimic the color that's on the house, but it should be a dark color, I agree, but a warmer, more naturalistic color, as seen on maybe some of the other houses nearby. I think kind of a monochromatic treatment of the brick I'm okay with. I can understand why there was agreement with the grayscale, because that is such a dominant language in our built environment in the last in this decade. But it does not work in this location, and I think a warmer brick would be less of a stark contrast to what we have here. Would we be able to go back to the renderings? There were the 4 renderings on the page.
The elevations.
The elevations.
The elevations, yeah. Yes, thank you. this is a Georgian colonial house, and there's a great deal of symmetry in this style of home. And I think if you're looking at the rendering on the lower left-hand side, it would, I think it would improve it to have the band on the far left side go all the way up, with the brick, so that it's more symmetrical. You're keeping some of that symmetry, which overall this building doesn't have, but I think acknowledging that and incorporating that would be something important. Yeah, those basically are my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Well, you've received a lot of feedback, so I will only add very minimal stuff. Someone very smart used to always say the devil's in the details. And, I do think studying, the opportunity for that hyphen and some of that to give a little breath to that existing building. The program, I think it makes a lot of sense. The massing, I think, can make sense if you incorporate some of the feedback that you've received, bringing either the banding or the symmetry and so forth around that connection to the existing building. The only thing I'd really add is I'm assuming elevator overrun seems fairly large. And if there's the opportunity to bring that down to align with roof level, so that it feels, it's not trying to be a chimney. It feels like it's sort of trying to be. And I think that also throws the focus off in some cases, or will. So if you can minimize the visibility of your elevator overrun, that would really help. And then obviously, as you look at the brick, potentially considering if you're going more modern with the color, a less modern cut for the brick. Something that might have a little bit more texture, to relate to the profile of the historic bricks, but be a different color, or vice versa. Go with a more modern cut for the brick and a slightly more historical color in the warmer family, to really allow that separation but achieve everyone's goals. So with this being I'm sorry. Mr. Sandberg.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I would like to make one more comment about the brick.
Okay.
I do think in one of your slides, you have all three of the buildings that you have the sample next to. And I think it's really obvious in this slide that it's important what your joint thickness is and what your color of your mortar is. I would like that to align more with the grease house than the rest of because the other building has a very thick, very dominant mortar joint, and I don't think we want to match anything like that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So do you feel like you've received enough feedback to continue the development of your design?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They could go on.
We'll then conclude our feedback. But obviously, if you have any questions, reach out to staff related to the feedback, and we look forward to seeing you come back with further development of your design.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank
We
you.
appreciate the feedback.
Thank you. That concludes our schematic plan reviews for today. We then can move on to our landmark and nominations. We have one nomination located at 10311 Ramona Boulevard.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I am
Good morning.
here to present the Helper Crosser residence at 10311 Ramona Boulevard, located in Ward 4. The primary research was originally conducted by AmeriCorps community surveyor Emily Spasia Swift. And this nomination is at the request of the homeowner, Ms. Elizabeth Thomas. Next, please. The property is just west of Luke Easter Park, near the intersection of Kinsman Road and Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, formerly East Boulevard, on the border of the Kinsman and Mount Pleasant neighborhoods. Next slide. This house has a prominent location at the intersection of Ramona and Audubon Boulevards. Next slide, please. Woodland Hills Park was created with roots to the City Beautiful movement of the 1890s, creating grand buildings and sweeping green spaces. This called for the creation of residential neighborhoods laid out along parkways, large lot sizes, and created a suburb-like environment. The 1893 Cleveland Park and Boulevard Commissioner Act allowed for the creation of a board of commissioners to issue bonds and acquire land for parks. The commission was set to last for 7 years, when all the parks were then to be turned over to the city. The land for Woodland Hills Park was acquired mostly between September and December 1899. Part of the land was gifted to the city by the Levi Johnson estate, who placed conditions that a roadway running through the park be completed within 1 year, the remaining part completed within 5 years, and that the same rules be applied as in other parks and boulevards in the city. A portion of this park was not within the city limits at this time and would not be until the annexation of Newburgh City in 1913. Next slide, please. In February 1911, Lillian Helper purchased 52 acres of land from the Johnson Realty Company for their subdivision. She and her husband Moses included deed restrictions, including setbacks and minimum price of construction. Moses had been in business as a real estate agent for a few years prior to this subdivision. Next, please. Moses Helper came to America from Russia as a child. At the start of his career, he relocated to Barberton as a shoe salesman and began dabbling in real estate. He returned to Cleveland in 1907 and established his own business. He worked as an allotment operator, assisting in the sales of the lots, but not necessarily building the houses. He grew successfully in this business and began acquiring more properties and building houses on them. By the 1940s, he was noted as having laid out 65 subdivisions, including approximately 25,000 lots, and built more than 3,000 residential units and several downtown commercial structures, not only in Cleveland, but in Avon, Bedford, Euclid, and Solon. Next, please. In a little over 25 years, the allotment was nearly completely built up. Due to the area not being annexed until 1913, there are no building permits available for the earlier construction and for our research property. Next, please. However, the Helpers did commission an architect, which made good advertising for the allotment. The $12,000 home, about $400,000 today, was designed by Daniel Reamer. Reamer was originally from Oberlin, and after relocating with his family to the south, he returned to Oberlin for his education. He had an architectural practice in Birmingham, Alabama, and Chattanooga, Tennessee, prior to coming to Cleveland in about 1910. He is mostly known for his works for his father on Reamer Place in Oberlin and the Reamer Barn for his uncle. The latter structure was added to the National Register in 1979. The Helpers did not live here for very long, as they sold the property to Robert Crosser in 1915. Next, please. Robert Crosser was also a child immigrant, arriving at age 7. He became a lawyer and was later elected to the Ohio House of Representatives. He authored the Initiative and Referendum in Cities Law, which allowed citizens to call for a referendum vote on any ordinance that a city council enacted. He was appointed chair of the Initiative and Referendum Committee to propose changes to the state constitution in 1912. That year, 34 of 42 proposed amendments were adopted by the voters, including the INR proposal. He was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1913 and has sat for 4 years, served the state for 4 decades. Next slide, please. In 1915, William Sprague of Portsmouth introduced legislation to redistrict the state, undoing the redistricting from the year before. Under the new lines, Crosser would have been removed from his newly won seat. To account for the possible change, he purchased the property from the helpers as it would have remained in the 21st congressional district whether or not the gerrymander passed. The legislation was defeated. During his time in Washington, he was a consistent advocate for labor industries, particularly for railroad and airline employees. He was also the chair of the House Committee on Interstate and Foreign Commerce from 1949 to 1952. The home remained with the family until Crosser's passing in 1957. Next, please. The house maintains many of its original features and materials. The clay tile roof was removed recently. The rendering showed 3 windows in the center bay, and it may have originally been designed that way, but is unclear when it was changed. The window in the current opening is a replacement either way. Next slide, please. A library addition was constructed in 1935. The garage is in poor condition. A rear porch has also been removed. Next slide, please. When the National Register questionnaire was submitted by Emily as a part of her AmeriCorps requirements, they felt that while Crosser's political career is noteworthy, it did not appear to rise to the level of an individual listing on the National Register. They asked for more information on Reamer and that if this could be part of a district. Additional research on Reamer has added about 20 buildings to his portfolio, but few of them were in Cleveland. We may find more later, but based on current knowledge, he would be better associated with Auburn or Chattanooga. Next slide, please. In reviewing the Helper Woodland Hills District, it appears that most of the 310 lots still have their original buildings on them. It certainly does have a few missing teeth, but it may be considered a district. Next slide, please. So we turn this over to you for your deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Muslin?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to, I guess, add, normally when Landmark staff is bringing forth a potential nomination to you guys, even at the request of the property owner, we're kind of all on the same page and have a strong feeling of like, this is eligible and here's why. With this one, there's a lot more discussion internally. I think that, the NRQ raised some the NRQ response from the SHPO raised some valid points, that this may be better for part of a district. It's potentially associated with a few individuals, but is that association strong enough to warrant landmarking the structure? Are any of those individuals, do they rise to the level of, local significance? You've got one of a congressman who, one of the longest serving Congress members from Ohio. I think Marcy Kaptur just broke his record fairly recently for longest serving congressional member from Ohio. And then you've got the Moses Helper, the full depth of his history in Cleveland and all the developments he was part of, I think would take a lot more time to really dig deep into. But even so, is this property the best to associate with him because he only lived there for 2 to 3 years, and there are other properties in Cleveland where he spent more time. So might those be better associated with him? So it's kind of one of those. Staff's feeling is, it has a lot of elements that make it, like almost a strong argument for significance on that one point. So kind of does that, combination of all of those make it rise to the level that we would recommend nominating it for individual landmark status? I think some on staff would say yes, and others have some questions. I mean, there's also just the architectural significance of it. It's a great example of kind of high craftsman style, something we don't have a ton of here in Cleveland. But its condition over the years is a bit deteriorated. Currently, the first floor windows are all boarded up. The former clay tile roof was replaced within the last 15, 20 years. So it's not what it was architecturally, 20 years ago, but is there enough there that it's still significant? So without any clear direction, there you guys go. Up for discussion. If you aren't comfortable moving forward at this point, you can certainly take more time to let it marinate. There are elements we could look into more if there are specific questions, but we did want to get this before you because the property owner had requested it some time ago, and we just wanted to bring it to you guys to see what your thoughts were.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments.
Council member in the area. Well, my thoughts are I met Ms. Thomas when I came into this position, and I understand her sentiments of nominating her property as a landmark. But there's a but there. So as right now, just there's other homes in that particular area that are much better maintained per se. And I think at this time, I think it just needs to be put on hold or tabled because the house is not in it's not in very
Maintaining
good
its original fabric.
maintain is yes, because this is not my expertise, so I don't. The language is difficult for me sometimes to express. So, but the house needs some work to be done to bring it up to the par to for it to be considered as a landmark per se. The area per se is very reserved, very beautiful. The culture is there, the history is there per se, because I live just across the street from Luke Eastern Park. I live in that area, but I'm just on the next street from the park per se. So I do love the area that I'm in, but I think the house needs to be upgraded quite a bit before it's considered as a landmark at this time.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. Councilwoman, other questions and comments? Mr. Brunges?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through the chair. Councilman, just for you to know about procedure and process, all of our, when we designate a building or nominate the building and go through the designation process, it's done in an as-is condition. So not everything is perfect, and we know that. And this is not saying yes or no, it's just saying that this gives an opportunity for people to have potentially other funding sources and grants and such like that. So the nomination doesn't move forward. The designation does not move forward without your approval. The Landmarks Commission could find today that, it is worthy, we want to nominate it, but then it goes no further. It rests with you beyond that. But if they deliberate today and say, you know what, it doesn't, they can say, we're not going to follow through on this too. Either way, but right now, it doesn't have your support. So designation would not move forward. So introducing legislation would not. And if you wanted to work with the homeowner, say, look, if you want my support, I'm going to need you to do this before it moves forward.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Brunges. That's a great insight. Other questions, Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's nice that the homeowner is initiating this. A lot of times we are initiating it from the city and we're getting pushback from the property owner. My question is there anything going on in this area which would impact or even endanger this property?
Anything such as?
Big apartment building going in next door, or somebody wanting to, tear it down and redevelop, or, I don't know.
No, well, at this time, there's no development housing development is going on in this area, but there's a lot of upgrading is going on at the park itself. We are implementing a amphitheater on the north side of Lou Easton Park. Right now, as we speak, that is going up on the north side, which is Dickinson, Martin Luther King. We're looking at, the city is looking at bringing in a skate rink amenity over there on the south end of Martin Luther King Drive. We're building a incorporating a dog park at the park as well. Per se, there's a lot of upgrading going on with the pavilions. 5 pavilions, they're going to be putting in new roofings there at the park as well. So they have a lot of exterior going on, structural exterior going on at Lucas Park right now. But other than that, the resurfacing that was done on Martin Luther King Drive was done about maybe 5 or 6 years ago in that particular area. But we do have a beautification of other homes in the area as the Reservoir Court Place right there on the south end of Kinsma and Martin Luther King per se. So it's very structural as in development, as in that's the center area of that. And you have a lot of historical homes on Martin Luther King Boulevard as well. You have Benedictine School there as well. So we have a lot of history in that area, and it's really beautiful. Beautiful in that area per se. But that's about it that's going on.
Has there been any talk of landmarking that district?
No, and that's surprising to me as a resident in that area. I've been a resident in the area for 26 years. So, but that area is not landmark or historical at all, but it has all historical homes in that area, and each home is different. There's a different build, it's a different type of home on that street next door to each other. There's nothing consistent, but there's always been a beautiful area of down going across Martin Luther King, Ramona, as well as Audubon, Martin Luther King. That particular, those particular, right of ways of the basic of the surrounding of the park per se.
Staff is fairly confident that there's a historic district there, just not designated. It's been surveyed, and, I think, if we put in the time and energy into everything that goes into nominating and designating a district, I think there's one there. We just haven't done any of the community meetings or any of that outreach. But that's certainly something we could look into.
I'll add that Emily surveyed 100 properties in the Helper district. So there's still another 200 or so that need to be surveyed. Martin Luther King, formerly East Boulevard, was surveyed by Aaron Swickard back in, I want to say 2015 or 2016 from Kinsman South. So that is pretty much done. And that would be an interesting one as well, because eventually what Luther King could do could all the way up.
Up across going to not Buckeye, it goes from Buckeye, Kinsman, goes to Union, it goes all into Garfield, because it ends at Garfield, which is part of Ward 2.
Right. So
they cross.
And that could be the equivalent of the West Boulevard, because that's your East Boulevard. So that would be that whole parks plan.
Interesting feedback. Yeah, I think my personal opinion is that, I think the structure is, very beautiful, and it's been maintained to a level that the resident could, but I don't know if it's noteworthy enough in the history to be a standalone. But I do think it would be worthy to investigate the district to make it a more powerful preservation of that entire area, because to me, that's, the structure is very nice and has its own benefits to recognize, but the district has, is one of the stronger things to me personally. So I personally feel like investigating the district would be worthy versus nominating the singular structure. With that said, though, I will say it because we have to, is knowing the staff level and how many structures you already oversee. Every nomination would have to be, we need to also complement it with staff to help oversee it as things move forward. So that is my personal opinion on this nomination. Mr. Lozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in agreement with that. I think I'm certainly more in support of looking into the district itself rather than this particular home. But I do have just a question about, for an individual property like this to get the support, like, do you have an example of can you give an example of a home that has been landmarked individually, and what went into that and why was it decided to become landmarked? I'm just trying to get like a apples to apples sort of comparison, because I know that there's some, anyway.
Perhaps the Langston Hughes house be one, because he was living there during his high school years, and it's an individual property here. What's the one that was in the bad condition? Schofield House.
Yeah.
Schofield Mansion is an example of something. Yeah, and lived in, and it was in terrible condition, but it was landmarked because it needed to be opened up for any tax credits and such like that. Those are.
The Olympian, sorry. Over
Jesse Owens' house.
Jesse Owens.
Yes.
thank you.
Jesse Owens' house
And
more
so,
recently.
so typically, we try to find if there's a property or a site that is representing an individual, we want it to be like associated, the property that's most strongly associated with that person. So like for George Washington, it's Mount Vernon. It's not the place that he slept for a few years, or even the White House. You know what I mean? Like it's, and you don't want 6 houses across the city that are the Jesse Owens house because he lived there for, So it really is like when was the person we're associating with this property, when was their period of significance, and does this house tie into it, or this property tie into it, and is it sort of related to it, or is it just tangential? So it's always a judgment call, but and that's why this one's tough, because it's like I said, there's a lot of like almost there, but does that altogether make it significant? But yeah, it's an interesting discussion.
Mr. Stanberry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And please let me know if this is an appropriate question, and maybe we shouldn't take this into consideration, but is the current homeowner looking to nominate this building so that they can go after federal funding or any other kind of, assistance in restoring the building? Is that part of the goal of this ultimate project?
I do not have an answer for that, but she has been very persistent in her request to have this considered. I don't know what the future holds for it, but that has been her request, so we're trying to honor that.
Then I think my personal opinion would be a district is a great idea, and it would probably be a better use of resources to focus on a district instead of an individual listing.
I just point out what your that particular question. I don't believe that's her initial goal at all, because I know her. I got to know her over the 4 years, and I got to know her daughter too. So that is not her initial goal at all, due to the time frame that she lived in the house and what I have already been assisting her with along away in these 4 years. So that wouldn't be her initial goal, but I know one of her goals is to work with Department of Aging to have home repair done to the property, and that's one of the things that I've been working with her initially on the property.
I think staff would be happy to assist in giving
Maybe-
appropriate, if she wants to maintain the historical fabric of it, we can say, go this direction. Here's what we would allow if it were a landmark, and here's what not to do. And I think we've done that before for places that are not under our purview, just to assist the general public.
Yeah, and I guess not to get too inside baseball, but I think the challenge with this would be if there were city programs, they'd be federally funded. And so those are always on a tight budget. And sometimes our recommendations and requirements do increase a budget. If it was federal, it'd have to go through a Section 106 review, but since we have an NRQ saying that it's not eligible for the National Register, at least currently, it would be considered non-historic for the 106 review. So so applying extra dollars towards it for the historic preservation and might be difficult. And that I guess goes towards some of my just personal concerns that would we be placing, I guess could potentially be a future burden to this property being rehabilitated. Always wanting the most appropriate materials and all of that. Given its current condition, I have reservations.
Great feedback. All right, we've received a lot of great feedback. Any additional questions or comments? So what I am hearing may not be appropriate at this time to proceed with the nomination, but it would be worthy as a follow-up to look into the district and or having a conversation with the owner to see what her goal is for the property and if there's other avenues that can be there to help her achieve her goals. Procedurally, what's our next step?
So I guess if there is no motion to nominate, then we would just move on to the next section. So the
We don't
minutes.
table it, we don't do anything.
I
would
reject the nomination.
I would not support the nomination at this time without prejudice, because if we do find more information later that could say, oh,
Right.
well, there it is. There's the reason why it should have been the first time, then we can come back to it. So we're not taking it off the table forever. We're just saying at this time it is not eligible.
That's what I'm looking for, because I don't think we're rejecting it.
Right.
We're just not supporting it. So is that the appropriate that someone should make a motion to not support the nomination at this time?
It could be tabled.
Or do we table it? Is that put
Yeah,
under a timetable?
Tabling, I mean, technically it's tabled, it would be tabled for 6 months and then it would
Could ask the
essentially
law
expire.
department.
Yeah.
Who will we
Law?
You can make a motion to, move the nomination forward and just vote no. If that's what the committee would like to do, or you could table it. It would be the same result either way. So it's really up to the commission what you want to do, but those are kind of the two options. So someone could place a motion on the table and say, I would like to make a motion to move this nomination forward, but then, you just make a vote accordingly against the nomination.
And do they start over with a new case number and all of that?
We don't have case numbers for nomination. So I think what Ms. Lipscomb is essentially presenting is probably the path forward. If it can be a motion made to nominate it, and then that motion were to fail, then it would in essence be, the nomination would be rejected essentially.
Okay,
Yeah.
stating that. Okay, so then would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move to nominate the Helper Crosser residents for landmark status.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, we have a second.
Second, yes.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gray. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
No.
Director Mersman,
No.
Mr. Sambry,
No.
Mr. Strickland,
No.
Mr. Trassick,
No.
and Ms. Tratt.
No.
All right. Madam Chair, the motion fails by a vote of 6-2.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Can I change it? I thought,
It's okay.
okay,
Yes.
all right.
The motion failed, so.
The motion failed. Okay, thank you, Mr. Brunges. So that concludes our landmark nominations. We'll move on to the minutes. There were 2 minutes that were circulated for review and approval. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes? Would someone like to put forward a motion for approval? Mr. Lozier?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from August 26, 2021 and July 10th, 2025.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Samberry. Any further discussion? No? Mr. Mustin, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trassick,
Yes.
and Ms. Tratt.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right, then we move on to administrative reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did just want to note that we do have a demo site visit scheduled for tomorrow out at East 130th Street. So it's, yeah, hopefully we'll see some of you and some members of the local committee there. Also did just want to note, we have a condolence card for Mr. Dreyer's family. And just again, wanted to express our sympathies for his friends and loved ones. Alan was appointed to the committee officially back in 2009 by then Council President Marty Sweeney, but he served kind of as a backup stand-in for a number of years before that. Like I remember when I first started at City Hall, he was always a friendly face to see sitting up here, and he will definitely be missed. So.
I agree. Well, thank you. I was going to ask if there's anything
Yeah,
like
and-
that, so.
And we will, yeah, I'll pass on details as we have them about services or anything like that.
Excellent, thank you. With that, then we will adjourn today's meeting and see everyone in 3 weeks.